This is the January Super Sabre Society Video of the Month. We're in San Antonio, Texas. We just had a funeral of one of the old Misties, Misty 3-2 Ed Reisinger, and I'm with Mick Greene and Dick Rutan, and obviously these are two old guys, and I want to talk to them about the old days in the Air Force and flying. Mick, how'd you get started in flying? Tell us about that.
Well, being as old as I am, I was back after the Wright brothers sometime, and I graduated from the Naval Academy, got seasick, and it wasn't curable, so I ended up joining the Air Force, and went through Air Force pilot training and was commissioned in the Air Force, and that's the beginning of the story.
Dick, how'd you get into flying?
Well, Mick was he was a consultant to the Wright brothers airplane. You can tell how successful that was. Now, I've been wanting to fly ever since day one. My mother took me for a little airplane ride when I was just a little kid, and we circled around Riverside in the back of this J5 Cub, and what that little kid saw when he looked out would change his life forever. It was aviation fuel. My brother and I were born with, did not have a birth certificate, only had a flight plan and aviation fuel. But anyway, it was a thing from birth, I guess, to fly. And unfortunately, the excitement about flying overrode the ability for more rounded character development. So I knew everything about airplanes, but I didn't know jack squat about anything else.
Mick, what was pilot training like back then? Where'd you do it, and how'd you get in the Hun?
My pilot training started at Marana Air Base in Tucson, Arizona. We flew in the T-34 and the T-28, and then graduated to Big Spring, Texas, where I flew the T-33. And from T-33, I had enough standing that I could get into fighters, so I flew the F-86 and the F-100. And then I went to France and Germany, where I flew for 4 years, and that's the start of it.
Were those the Nuke Alert days?
Yes, I sat Victor Alert for about 3 years of that time, with targets in Russia and beyond where we could return.
Dick, how about your route through pilot training?
Well,
to the 100?
Actually, this is very confidential, and I don't want to let this out, but I entered the Air Force as a navigator.
Navigator?
And so I flew nav for a little bit, and I didn't like it at the time, but what it turned out to be is some invaluable training that would be successful in the transglobal flight around the world. But anyway, I did a thing in pilot training, in nav, and then went through pilot training in Del Rio, Texas, and there from F-100 gunnery school, then to Vietnam, stint in Misty, and then another 4-year tour in Lake and East England flying F-100s, and we were protecting the British citizens from the nuclear hordes of the Soviets back in those days.
So Mick, how did you get from France to Vietnam?
Well, from France we went to Germany, and then when my 4-year tour was all over there in Europe, I went to graduate school, trying to get into the test pilot school, and instead I was assigned to Kirtland Air Force Base, and got into the flight test business there, and ended up flying the 104 for a while and doing a lot of interesting test flying at high speeds and low altitudes. And about this time the Vietnam War came by, and they sent me my draft notice to go to Vietnam in F-100. So I did my 5th checkout in the F-100 and went to Vietnam, and ended up after that tour with about 2,300 hours in the F-100.
And so you joined Misty. How in the heck did you get in Misty once you went to Vietnam, Nick?
Now, when I went over to Phuket, of course, it was really exciting to fly combat in a single-seat, single-engine fighter. But basically, a lot of the missions were just dropping bombs in the tops of jungles and hit my smoke. And man, there was a lot going on down there. You could hear the FAC, and he was talking about troops in contact and stuff, and we'd go in and drop our bombs and leave. And I'm thinking, wow, there's a war going on, you know, and I'm not going to be part of it. And then when they found out about Misty and what they were doing and how much ground fire that they were getting in the trucks and stuff, then I decided that, hey, that's where I had to be. And I conned them into giving me a quasi flight lead checkout, which I was nowhere near qualified to be flight lead in Vietnam, just to get rid of me. And then I went over to Misty and I stayed there until the rest of my whole tour in Vietnam. So I did a couple of Misty tours. I never did go back to busting trees.
Mick, you were there, kind of the second generation of Misties, I remember.
Yes.
Were you there when Bud was there?
I gave Bud one ride before I entered Misty. I was the chief of Stanaval in addition to other things because of all the F-100 time I had. And I flew one ride with him, checking him out on refueling and finding the refueling tracks that he'd be using when he came to Misty.
So what were the early Misty days like?
Well, it was a lot more exciting than, as Dick mentioned, tree busting. We were going north and we were getting shot at a lot, and you know, there's nothing more fun than getting shot at when they miss you. And part of my experience there was checking out Dick when he first came to Misty. And I'm not sure I did him any good, but he's here now anyway.
I think you were the first to reach 100 missions in Misty. So how did that come about?
Well, Jonesy was the first one.
You're right.
He was the first guy to make 100. But when my Misty tour was up, the first one, I thought about going back and doing tree busting. And hell no, this was where the war was. This is where the excitement was. And as a captain, you know, remember all the authority we had on stuff? We'd go up there and we'd have the whole Alpha Strike Force that gets weathered out of Hanoi sometimes. And Mick Greene or Dick Rutan or Don Shepperd, they would all be launched on us, and we had control of the whole strike force to put them into alternate targets and stuff. I mean, those were heydays, boy. That was really something.
So, as you guys look back on the old Air Force and today's Air Force, what do you see? Mick, what do you see?
Well, I'm not sure this is for publication, but I don't see much good. I think we had a lot more authority and responsibility. And with Vietnam, they started the top-heavy supervision of flying and calling missions and calling what you could bomb and what you couldn't bomb. And it all came from higher than our military leaders. It came from McNamara and the guys from the Pentagon telling us what we could and couldn't do. And I think that started a downward trend throughout the Air Force that continues today. The rules of engagement are all run by the hierarchy in Congress and in the Defense Department and up all the way up to the President. And I don't think that was a good thing.
What kind of message do you have for the young kids, Nick?
Well, the thing changed dramatically. And all of us old graybeards that had the honor of flying in combat where you get shot at, gentlemen, those days are over. And to roll in on an active gun site or find a target through MiGs and SAM missiles and heavy anti-aircraft fire, just the feeling that you had when you did that, that was pretty exciting stuff. And in a way, none of those people can do any of that anymore. Those days are over. You don't do that. We bomb missions from halfway around the world and a computer does it. We have bombs that are so accurate they can determine which side of their shirt pockets they want it to impact. Compared to World War II, where 1,000 airplanes would go over and maybe 12% of the bombs hit the target. It was a lot better in our day, and right now it's unbelievable what they can do. They drop a bomb from 60 miles away and it can go in any room for any sniper. Holy bananas, see? And nobody's in harm's way, roughly, anymore. So times have really changed. But the sad thing I feel is that those guys, they're going to miss what it feels like to roll in on that stuff. When the flak and the tracers are coming all around, that's a heady feeling for them. And it's sad that they don't do that anymore.